You mentioned the name. We've got to ask about it. It's on the screen. You've heard probably about this all week, like many of us. And I'm trying to think of all the phrases I've heard, like it's pending, it's close, it's imminent, it's going to happen. Are we all just expecting, almost Thanos style, the inevitable to come at some point this week?
Well, the latest I've kind of heard on this is that, not necessarily in a position where, it's absolutely waiting for the bid to go in or whatever. The latest I was kind of told on this, and I want to make sure I phrase this exactly right, is that basically Liverpool are still waiting from the signal from Newcastle to show that they have got a willingness to sell, which, as far as I'm aware at this very moment, as I speak right now, they haven't quite had that, although that may have happened in the last 24 to 48 hours. That's only the last I've heard of it now. We're still waiting for that. So Liverpool are not going to go in and make a bid without being given some encouragement from Newcastle. And at the moment, or like I say, at the latest info I have is that hasn't happened. But it's clear what's going on here, isn't it? I think this isn't even reading between the lines, is that Newcastle will give that signal when they know that they've got a replacement in the door. So Sesko and Viss are absolutely key to this scenario, really. So, Newcastle know Liverpool are there. They know that they're waiting. They know that they're ready to pay a British transfer record to get the player in. And they're out there trying to sign two strikers. So I don't think you have to be a genius to kind of read between the lines there to see what's going on. And as I say, the key thing is from the Liverpool perspective, they're just waiting for Newcastle to give them the nod. And I think that nod will come once Newcastle, maybe they've not got the deal completely sealed, but they've been given the okay by Sesko and they're able to get a deal done for Wissa as well. So that's the key aspect here is what happens with those players, or alternatively, another target that Newcastle end up getting for strikers. But those scenarios are absolutely crucial. Liverpool are there ready and waiting. I think Newcastle are already effectively given the green light by making moves forward to sign strikers, but they haven't yet given that firm nod to Liverpool to come in, sit down, let's talk about a fee.
It almost feels like we're in a house buying chain, like the seller's got to sell, buy the new house, and all links together that way. But it does feel like it's coming. I suppose the big positive that all Reds are looking at is all the stories, the updates, whatever you want to call it, that we get is Isak turning down 600 grand a week, no interest in Chelsea, United, anyone else. He's almost saying to Newcastle, it's Liverpool only. So all the noises are positive as we build towards this, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I'm not worried about Liverpool being gazumped by anyone else. That's absolutely clear. I think, I titled my YouTube video a couple of days ago that Isak wants Liverpool, and I had a few comments kind of suggesting, that's not the case or whatever. As far as I understand it, it is. He's very, very, the reason that this whole scenario is playing out is because the player wants to come to Liverpool and he wants to win with Liverpool. It's not because he's just keeping his options open and he might want to go and earn crazy money in Saudi, or he'd wait for another big English club to come in. He wants to come to this team. So that is massively helpful, of course. And, as much Newcastle's stance is just softening and softening day by day, isn't it? And then we now got to the point that they're already sourcing replacements. So you can never say anything is certain because things could fall through. They might not get Sesko and they might say, right, but we just can't do anything about this. We can't get a replacement in when we've got 3 years of contract left. So you can never say, but everything is moving in that direction, isn't it? For you to have some confidence, at least that Newcastle are trying to make it happen. Liverpool are trying to make it happen. But it's just, there are things you can't control in the transfer market. So we just wait and see if all those things can fall into place. But it's certainly more positive than I felt about it maybe 2 months ago, where I felt like this was not going to be a goer at all. But I think what's happened here is the players indicated a clear desire to leave. I think Newcastle have been bloodied and bruised in the transfer market with the failure to get targets in. These two things have combined and just put Liverpool in prime position, really. So, it's exciting. And I think fans should be, should have some degree of belief that Isak is going to become a Liverpool player. But as I say, also a little bit of wariness that, things could go wrong here. We're not there till it's signed. So let's just see how things progress. Big few days and a couple of weeks really coming up in terms of, I think everybody should be having the fingers crossed that Newcastle can get Seshko over the line. So, maybe message him on Instagram and tell him how great Tyneside is. And Newcastle is a fantastic city as well. And it'd be a good club to play for. I genuinely mean that. So, but yeah, maybe remind him of that fact, and that might be helpful.
Indeed. And we'll always have some Newcastle fans in the chat, as we seem to do most weeks as well. And if you thought we were a high-tech show, ladies and gents, it was about 2 minutes ago I realised I've not actually put the power pack on my laptop. So that might explain a lot of things, the little details. There you go. But sticking on incomings, people probably ask, why have you got Joe Gomez on the screen? But that was part of Saturday. Joe Gomez flying home again. Sounds terrible because we all love the player with another injury. But sticking on the incoming side of it, first of all, surely this, because Mark Guehi keeps getting mentioned again and again, the need for a centre-half just gets exasperated, seems to increase all the time at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's... The thing is with the Gomez injury is, by all accounts, it's not a serious injury or anything to be massively worried about. But of course, we know he picks up injuries throughout the season. That's absolutely, it's just in his nature to be injury prone. So, I doubt this is going to be the first injury. And what happened then? After that, you lose Gomez, and all of a sudden, Van Dijk's playing one half, Konate's playing the other half, and then Tsimikas is playing centre half. You've got Gravenberch back there as well. It all gets a little bit messy, doesn't it, as soon as you lose one of your three centre halves? So it just underlines to me they do need to sign one. It wasn't in doubt that they needed to replace Quansah, and I think Liverpool do see it similarly. The manager said himself, we've not replaced Joel Quansah yet, so he's clearly acknowledging it. And I think that the key thing here, again, they're just kind of waiting for Crystal Palace to give some kind of indication that they are willing to do business at an acceptable price. And, there is that little bit of pressure on them in terms of what price they go at, the interest he's got from elsewhere, the fact that they could lose him for free. That's all a factor here. And I think if Liverpool didn't think there was a chance they could get him, that whole story will be over already. They'd be out and they'd be getting an alternative. So I think they clearly think that there's a chance with Guehi, and that's why they're hanging in there. But we're just waiting for kind of concrete developments on that one. And one thing actually to answer on this, because it's on the agenda, so you were probably going to ask this question, but I've already done so much asking of my own questions now that I'm, is whether they'll go with 5. I did see someone mention it in the chat earlier, and I still really struggle to see them doing that. I know everybody says about Gomez being injury prone, and they're absolutely right, he is. But Liverpool will think along the lines of, we've got to pay him a wage, and what do you do if everybody's fit? You've then got 5 centre halves, and you can't play all of them. Who's never even making the squad? It's just an untenable situation they don't want to put themselves in. So, especially when they're a team as well that plays with 2 centre halves, they don't play with 3 or 4 like City have done in the past, or Arsenal do. They've got them all across the back line. It's just not workable to have 5. So I really don't think that's going to be the case. And I know that will frustrate people, and people think that's not the right decision. But I think those people should be more of the mindset that Gomez should be sold, rather than thinking if you've got Gomez, you should have 5. I just don't think that's going to be something Liverpool will look to do, really, is to have a selection of 5. I'd be very surprised if they go down that route, to be honest.
It is a tough one, and I get it to some impact, because just looking factually, as you know, and we've talked about this before, people will say, yeah, it's great to have those 4, but Gomez's injury record, Konate had a surprise season maybe for a lot of things with the amount of games he played last year. There's no real sort of young centre-back backup with, Jarell Quansah going as well. But the fact that Arne Slot's talked about, well, I can drop Gravenberch in there, I can drop Endo in there. He's talked before about a small squad. As much as fans would want it, and I can almost get the logic to an extent, it all just rolls into probably getting 4 and going from there.
Yeah, but I kind of like that as well. I mean, the ideal situation is, from a purely, if you take the emotion out of it, the fact that Gomez is great and I really like him as a person, if you take that out of it, your ideal situation is probably that you sell him and you get 2 in, and one of them's a lot more robust than Joe Gomez, and you've got basically 4 for the majority of the season. Perfect. But obviously it is what it is, and Gomez is there, and you can't add 5. I think it's not feasible to expect them to have 5. So, if that's going to be the case, then to have Gravenberch who can play there, to have Endo who can play there is really, really useful. I thought Endo did really well when he played there last season, actually. I think he's definitely an option there if you need him. So, and the fact is that midfield has become way more competitive since last season because, yes, you're probably going to lose Harvey Elliott, but you've swapped him in for Wirtz, who's going to eat up an awful lot of minutes in attacking midfield. So Szoboszlai's got to go deeper. So all of a sudden he's in contention with Endo, with Gravenberch, with McAllister. With Curtis Jones as well. So, I think to be able to get Endo minutes at centre-half in the League Cup would actually be a good thing, really, for the kind of the happiness of the squad, really. So, if Gomez is injured when a League Cup game comes around, then, stick Endo in there. That's absolutely fine. And that's the way you maybe do it, really. So, for me, my personal view is that 4 and Endo as a 5th is not a bad option. And sometimes you may even throw Gravenberch in there because you've got so many options in that deeper midfield role. So I'm kind of happy with that. And I feel that Arne Slot sees it similarly.
It is interesting. I kind of get it from both sides, like you were saying. And also, if Guehi is the player that comes in, we are talking about a senior player who's used to playing thousands of minutes a season, isn't he, for Palace, England international. So that probably reduces the demand on Konate, Van Dijk, whoever's taken out at certain times. So I can get it from both point of views there. But yeah, at least one centre-half needs to come in sharpish. But this player I want to put on the screen, because his name keeps coming up. Malik Fofana, the Belgian youngster at Lyon, the winger, can play both sides. And I just like showing this tweet because Everton had a bid accepted for him. He's told them no, he's waiting for a Champions League club as well. This is a name that keeps coming up time and time again. And even for the forward options now, people are debating that if Isak comes, is that it? Is there another one? Does that risk others blocking the pathway? We've talked about Rio and Gamoa. It might be an unanswerable question, but if Isak does come, do you think Fofana would still then be added, or another potentially?
The one thing I could say about Fofana is I just don't personally know about this link at all, to be honest. Like, I'd just be completely honest there. A lot of the time, it's quite easy to get information on players, whether it's a likely target or not. But Fofana, I just haven't. I'm not say. I was going to say I've not been given any encouragement, and that makes it seem like he's not a target, or people at Liverpool are saying he's not. I've not had anything that makes me know either way. So I really, really find that hard to judge. I wonder whether he's on a form of a shortlist. If they don't get X, Y, and Z, then at some point he's there or whatever. But just not one I know much about in relation to Liverpool, really. But I think what is interesting that you allude to there is, what does this forward line end up looking like? Yeah. And I'm so fascinated to see how this one works out. And again, not easy to kind of get this bigger picture stuff in terms of info around this at the moment, because it relies on so many kind of hypotheticals and if you speak to people at any football club, they don't like to get into that too much. Kind of, oh, well, if X leaves and then Y leaves, and then, will he come in, and how many do you want then in that case? Because it becomes a bit, you just start telling stories then, don't you, rather than actually talking about concrete information. So the thing I'm finding really hard to ascertain at the moment is, if Chiesa leaves and Núñez leaves, which is what we expect, and Alexander Isak, they are able to sign him, do they just sign Alexander Isak? So your 4 forward options, then you go from having 6 last season, even though Chiesa barely played as the 6th, you go from having that 6 to having 4, which would be Ekitike, Isak, Salah, Gakpo. And then you ask Wirtz to do bits on maybe the left wing from time to time. You ask Ngamoa to maybe pick up more minutes than you'd maybe expect. You ask Jeremy Frimpong to be the Salah backup. I can't work out at the moment whether that's the plan or not. Yeah. It's very, very hard to kind of get to the bottom of that at the moment. And I really don't know. And for me, just to give a personal view on that, I would prefer that they would have 5 senior options and Ngamoa is the 6th as a kind of the Chiesa type. That's a decent amount of minutes for an Engamoa where it isn't for Chiesa, so he'd be kind of happy there. He'd be playing a decent amount of minutes that would really help his development. And then you have 5 really high quality options. For me, that should be the aim, but it's very hard to know whether that's what they're going to do, because my concern is that, you know, if you only have 4 and then Salah goes away and one of them gets an injury, you are starting Engamoa for an awful lot of games in the middle of a season where you're trying to win the title. And I think he's brilliant. What a talent he is, but is he at that level yet? I'm not sure. Or, you know, do you want Frimpong in the front line for a big chunk of your games again? I'm not so sure about that. So, you know, do you want to start moving Wirtz from his central role where he can pull the strings out wide and all of a sudden you reshuffle in 5 or 6 positions to make it work? I'm personally not massively in favour of that, but we'll see. There's such a long way to go in the window, and I wonder whether if you get an Isak, does Fofana come onto the list as a kind of young option you can throw all over the place? Yeah, I'm not so sure really, but it's a really interesting one for me. I think that how that whole thing pans out.
I do get the feeling a bit like you say that Arne Slot's always talked about a small squad, and he's not afraid to say things like, as you said, no, Frimpong could go right. No, I could push Wirtz up. Like, so Boslai's played there, Curtis Jones on occasions. He doesn't mind doing that at all. But then again, as we're alluding to at the same time, that AFCON, we know Salah misses, I think it's 6 league games at least, isn't it? And then you also think back to last season by playing quite often the same players. That was when the dip came, wasn't it, in the middle, when it really sort of caught up without the rest and refresh. And if there is no other options, that comes into the mix. As much as I'm excited by Alexander Isak, the big question mark alongside him is that injury record. I think a fool's going to ignore there's no real question mark there at the same time. So when you stack all that up, just one more forward, even if it's a younger one as well, like Fofana, who's prepared to play both wings, maybe a limited minutes, it does just feel like it makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's it. You almost see a world where if Isak is signed, someone like him of his profile is kind of perfect to be a foil all the way across the front line. Yeah. Gives you another option when Salah's away. You know, doesn't put too much pressure on Engamoa. It doesn't mean that Frimpong can't essentially back up Bradley at right back because he's doing so many minutes as a winger. You don't have to move Wirtz. You know, all these things really. I'm just... I just think a profile like this would make a lot of sense. But as I say, don't really have any information on him as a target, and we'll see. And maybe there's alternatives, but someone like that I think would make a lot of sense on top of an Isak, I'd say.
And I suppose for the final thing around incomings, that's just what makes it so hard to predict. And I get it, people will have opinions that go, it's definitely an attacker and 1 centre half. No, it's 2 centre backs we need and 2 attack, like 3, 4, 2. There's just no way of putting sort of it's like just pin the tail on the donkey a little bit, trying to guess at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, I think what I feel, you know, safe enough to kind of guarantee as much as you can guarantee anything in the transfer market is that there's going to be a centre half signed and there's going to be a forward. Yeah. Beyond that, it's very hard to. I lean towards feeling that there would just be the 1 centre half, but whether it's going to be 1 or 2 forwards, very, very difficult to say at the moment, really.
Yeah, it's hard. And again, a lot of people saying what you mentioned around young Rio, he'll cover Chiesa's minutes, but as you alluded to, with the greatest respect to Chiesa, it was so minimal.